So, back for another VGC guide, and this time we are looking at Garchomp. I don't think I need to really say too much to justify why it's going to be an S tier. It's been S in basically every regional dex format that it's been available in. It's just one of the best ground types there is. Like, when Landorus is not around, then Garchomp is the default ground type. So, yeah, it's definitely S. Here is probably the set that I would use the most, because Hydreigon is also an S tier Pokemon, so you probably want to be outspeeding Hydreigon. Usually in previous formats, like back in VGC 17, I preferred to bulk out my Garchomp and just accept that I'm not winning the speed tie, but outspeeding the Hydreigons that are going to be in the format seems quite important, unfortunately. That means that you don't have room for much bulk, so you just want to be hitting hard. You can definitely do that with a Life Orb, with a Ground Terror typing on top of your Earthquake. In my opinion, Garchomp should generally be going for offensive Terror typing, because the point of Garchomp is because it's pretty fast, very strong, wants to be doing as much damage as possible. You can get rid of your quad weakness to ice and just have a regular weakness to ice, and then that makes you bulky enough to be able to survive an ice attack. So that's perfectly fine. You don't need to be resisting the ice attack, in my opinion. You can if you want to turn into a steel, because that's viable, and then you get Terra boosted Iron Heads as well, and that will help you beat the fairies. So if you wanted a somewhat defensive Terra type, then that's still okay if it's steel, and because then Iron Head gets boosted, so that helps you against the ice and the fairies if you wanted to go for that. But Ground Earthquake does a lot of damage, and it does it to both targets, so that is one of the better offensive ones. If you wanted slightly offense while still being defensive, Steel is probably the better way to go. And Rock Tomb is a nice move as well. People forget about Rock Tomb and they just default to Rock Slide. Rock Tomb with this much speed is going to outspeed some important things, like if you want to Rock Tomb a Hydreigon that's just turned into a Steel type so you can't really hit it anymore, then you can let your partner deal with it as well. Because realistically, Hydreigon actually has the upper hand against Garchomp because of the Terra typing. Hydreigon can just turn into one of its normal ones, whether that's poison, that's steel, or that's fire. Like, those are the three main ones. And then you can't hit it with Earthquake because it's levitating. And then you can't hit it super effectively, or even it's going to be resisted by with Dragon Claw into Hydreigon. So generally, Hydreigon now wins the matchup against Garchomp. So then Rock Tomb would help your partner be able to beat that Hydreigon. So that could be quite nice as well. So yeah, this is just generally good coverage. You don't need much more than this. I don't think that Stomping Tantrum is worth, because it's as strong as Earthquake to a single target. So basically you're halving your damage output here. I guess if you get flinched or you miss, then Stomping Tantrum matches Earthquake in damage output. But yeah, generally you want to be just going with Earthquake instead. There's no Granium Z or anything to make it a single target, but Stomping Tantrum, in my opinion, is too weak to justify. You want Earthquake to be able to hit both targets. So obviously you're going to build your team somewhat around Garchomp being able to Earthquake next to yourself, whether that's going for just Levitate Pokemon or Flying type Pokemon, or turning into Flying type Pokemon with Terra typing, and all that stuff as well. You probably should have Earthquake. I don't recommend Stomping Tantrum over Earthquake. So yeah, I would generally go with that. Unfortunately, it's pretty basic with the EV spreads. You just want to outspeed Hydreigon for the reasons I mentioned, and then that leaves you with just offense. So you might as well just do as much damage as possible. If you wanted to get fancy with the bulk, and you don't really care about outspeeding Hydreigon, like you just accept that you're just going to not beat the Hydreigons because they can tear it into something that resists you and just win the 1v1 that way, then you can outspeed at least a Gyarados, and then this allows you enough bulk to survive even a Choice Specs Draco Meteor, so long as you have terrored out of the Dragon typing, and then the rest into offense and it hits the bump, so that actually works out quite nicely. Then there's multiple different items that you can run on the Garchomp. Lumberry would be nice and generally good against most things, because then it's stopping all the Will-O-Wisps and stuff that can come out. This was my preferred set back in VGC 17. Lots of people have Rock Slide and Earthquake with Swords Dance. Rock Tomb, like I previously mentioned, is still very, very good because it's single target, gets around Wide Guard as well. And unfortunately we don't have Granium Z for Earthquake, but it's still going to be hitting pretty hard as soon as you get a Swords Dance. So if you wanted to just accept that you don't beat Hydreigons anymore, which generally you don't, then this bulky set would be entirely viable as well. Unfortunately, Choice Scarf is still very viable in the format as well. You can just click Rock Slide and you're sorted. You can outspeed a load of things with the Choice Scarf and just get some Earthquakes off. Again, you probably want the Ground Terror typing so that your Earthquakes with the Choice Scarf are still doing as much damage as you would have done with a Life Orb. So that is, unfortunately, going to be a set that has to be dealt with sometimes, because Choice Scarf Garchomp always seems to beat me for some reason. Don't know why, but probably because of Rock Slide flinches. But then also, you can use the other choice item as well. I wouldn't recommend Adamant, I would go back to Jolly if you are running Choice Ban. But Choice Ban is still absolutely fine because Ground type, Terra type, Terra type boosted Ground type Earthquakes with a Choice Ban can actually OHKO some things. So that is also pretty reasonable. I don't think there's too much I need to say about Garchomp. Like, most people tend to know how Garchomp functions. I don't think there's anything too groundbreaking that I've said here. So yeah, it's always one of the best Pokemon in the format. When Landorus is not available, it was still okay when Landorus was available, but yeah, if Landorus is not available, Garchomp is the premier ground type, and it's always going to be good in any regional dex format that it is allowed in.